Dr. Michael H Parsons, welcome to the show. Glad to have you, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mike, you're based where exactly?
Okay, well, that's a loaded question on its own. So I'm currently living in Texas, and I was commuting to my research site in Brooklyn, New York, and but the pandemic came, and so that really put a stop to that. So now I'm based solely in Houston, Texas.
Yeah. So as we know each other for, I don't know, like 5, 6 years or something, and we've stayed in touch for a while. And I know you do a lot of research on especially rodents in urban areas. So what kind of research is it that you do?
Right. Well, I mean, I would take a step back and just say that I've been allied to the industry, the pest industry, for about 20 years. So I'm really interested in developing or at least testing novel solutions to pest control. And that really means targeted or strategic management, or just adding new tools to the toolkit. Adding or assessing new tools. So that's multi-modal research that I'm most interested in, which means combining different cues like sight, scent or smell, and also cues. So we try to make a repellent that can be reinforced, because animals are so smart, particularly rats, that they're going to habituate to almost any cue. So we like repellents, we like attractants, we will even consider appeasement related control options. So it's just about giving more tools to the toolkit overall. Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, you're also been in touch with Dr. Robert Corrigan, Bobby.
Right. Well, I mean, Bobby was the first person that called me a rodentologist, and I never really thought of myself as one. So Bobby has really been a major support. And, I had never even seen a rat until Bobby took me out ratting. And it was such an experience, and his passion really came through. And so I was trained with marsupials. I don't know if you're aware that my primary model pest organism was the Western gray kangaroo.
No way.
So 10 years I was, there's 125 million kangaroos in Australia, and there's only 25 million people. So there's many more kangaroos than people there. So moving to New York City, I got a job there, but I had to have a new model organism. We don't have a lot of kangaroo problems in New York. So a colleague introduced me to Bobby, and Bobby's passion and his dedication. I mean, he got nothing out of it. He's like, I think I might have bought him a Guinness. He likes dark beer, for those of you out there and you want to impress Bobby. So I bought him a Guinness, I think.
Bobby,
and
if Bobby's watching this, you should definitely Google Black Velvet, because if you like Guinness, that's a really fancy drink to have.
Oh, okay. Indeed.
Yeah, that's cool. It's interesting. So, Bobby and you yourself, you're about urban rats, right? But why especially wild city rats so important for you?
Wow. I mean, we could talk for the rest of the day on this, but about 99% of the information we have about wild rats is based on the laboratory rat. And I'm so disappointed in that. That's kind of like basing everything we know about wolves in Yellowstone National Park on the Chihuahua. It's really, imagine if you develop a new pest control technique and you want to go out and trial it. Do you really want to go to the lab and trial it with
we don't.
Domestic? No, you want to go out and repeatedly observe individuals over time that you cannot even tell who is who. You cannot, so you want to be able to somehow identify individuals and watch them closely over time to find out how they're reacting. Are they going to be repelled for 1 day, 2 days, a week, a month? Those are really important things. And you really cannot do that with lab rats.
Yeah, gotcha. So what is it, what you mainly learned from the research? We've shared many things, but what is it, what you mainly learned from it?
The biggest lesson I've learned is there's a capacious gap in the literature on wild rat research. We don't know the first thing about wild rats. Like if you ask Bobby or me how many rats are in New York City, we could probably oscillate between 2 and 32 million on those guesses. I think Bobby is more comfortable with the low guess, but the point is we don't know. There's no one out there counting them. There's no one surveying them. They're just out there. They're small. They're uniform in appearance. They maintain a close proximity to humans, which is dangerous, but they stay just away from us so that we don't really know they're there unless we look closely and look for the rat rodent signs. So they're dangerous and they're difficult to study. And they're really cost our economy a lot. So, and there's just no research on them. Rats in the city are owned by someone. Either they're on private property or they're on city-owned property. So we cannot, as researchers, get access to rats. Pest professionals, on the other hand, you do, and you do have access to rats. And I think that's going to feed into some of the comments we've had shared previously, that we need pest control professionals to work more closely with academia. So you can provide us access to your rats, and then we can help you provide controlled observations of rats, and maybe even help you develop or assess control strategies.
Yeah. So we've been in an event, the Texas Rodent Academy, I think was the name of it, a digital event, which was really great. I really enjoyed it. Timothy and all the others. What I've found and heard from many, even also from California, which seems to be kind of the front-running green, modern pest control state, kind of. That you always cried out for help from pest controllers to participate with your research and on support and send in rats and tails and stuff like that. Is that still valid?
Yeah, right. So we've got a number of projects going on that really depends on industry. And so we've just completed one project on rats and rat populations and the pandemic, social distancing in particular, and whether there were changes in these populations. We had to use several different streams of data to kind of form any conclusions. But we couldn't have done that without industry presenting or either completing surveys for us. They actually helped us develop and disseminate those surveys, and they completed them. So that was a really important part of the research. They are also collecting rodents for us. So we're collecting rodents and sending them north of the border. So we're actually we're going to test along our colleagues at the Vancouver Rat Portal are going to be looking at two things. Whether rats can become infected with the SARS-CoV-2 virus responsible for COVID-19, and additionally, whether they can mechanically transmit the virus. So rats, even if they're not infected, they inhabit our sewers. And guess where the largest loads of COVID-19 are found? And our wastewater and sewers are very places that rats tend to congregate. So a rat walking through the sewer could potentially mechanically transmit the virus. So they're going to be looking closely at those. And then with pest control professionals' help, we're going to be sending those rats to them for analysis.
Wow, more important than ever, I guess. Pretty interesting. Yeah, keep us posted. I think if we're going to find some new things, we'll definitely do an urgent special interview for sure.
And if people would like to participate in the research, I mean, they can reach out to me on social media. I've got a presence on LinkedIn, so I'm really easy to find.
We're gonna share all of your details in the description. That's gonna be perfect. But thanks for you to mention it and offer it. That's really kind. And Mike, we also discussed modern techniques. My question would be, what is your thought on the future of rodenticides?
Rodenticides, wow. There's a lot of pushback on rodenticides, and it's not just in California. As you learned during the Texas Rodent Academy, it's an avalanche that's rolling our way, and it's just going to pick up steam. And you've already got the problems that I think you even spoke about, and that was with bait shyness, possible rodenticide resistance, and of course, a secondary poisoning of wildlife. But there's an additional factor that you hadn't even mentioned, and that was the animal welfare factor. So having worked closely with rats, I can attest that these animals are not only intelligent, but they're also somewhat more sentient than we realized. So from a welfare perspective, that means rodents are capable of expressing emotional contagion. That's the scientific term for feelings. And these animals suffer when they lose young. They actually, it's been shown recently in a number of papers that they demonstrate social justice. They demonstrate regret. They demonstrate joy from tickling. I think Bobby Corrigan even talked about the rodents that were driving the little robot, rodents that were driving the little robot vehicles. And so, these animals are going to become more and more of a welfare issue because people do not like harming animals in such a way that rodenticides is a very slow, painful process. We don't like thinking about it. We're trying to protect ourselves from all the pathogens rats carry. But look, there needs to be other ways. There needs to be many, many new tools. But more importantly, don't wait for researchers to design the new perfect rodent repellent or attractant. It's not going to happen. Take responsibility and let's think about hygiene. Hygiene first, and second, think about exclusion. And then from there, we can branch out into different types of trapping and
and so forth. No, absolutely agree. I didn't even mention that. You're right. Funnily enough, because it's one of the most obvious themes that we're focusing on in our work and also in our political work is, if you look at some usual rodenticides around 4 to 6 days, probably that rodents pass or die. And within, we've, by the way, have a snap trap that's animal welfare approved by the German environmental government agency, and it's seconds. It's a few seconds in average, which is, there's millions of percentage in between, and it's just agencies that are responsible for allowing chemicals like rodenticides, anticoagulants whatsoever to be used are also asking that whenever there is a more humane or animal welfare conform product solution whatsoever, then we should subsidize it or substitute it. And that's really interesting because I didn't see that in the past decade, but that's really, I think, where in the next 5 to 10 years, or I want to say in that decade really that we're in right now, people are definitely going to pay much more attention to, right?
I like to think we're evolving forward, and we're not going to lean on rodenticides as a crutch. Maybe they're going to be used like as a last defense kind of antibiotic when there's nothing else. Consider rodenticides, but let's try some other less draconian measures of killing the animals. If we can pour this time and effort into research, and if researchers can actually find access to enough sites so that they can do research unhindered, which is very hard in the city. Imagine being in Times Square and there's a rat. Let's research it. how do you even do that?
Totally.
So we need access to rats.
We in the discussion that we had with a Texan Rodent Academy, we also talked about the IPM pyramid, you remember? And it's standing on its head, basically, or upside down.
Right. And I think you handled that pretty well in the way you described it. So I don't think I could add anything to that other than it's almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If the bottom isn't fitting, you can't build on top of it and scaffold on top of it. And so for us, the bottom really is hygiene, and from the hygiene we go into exclusion, and then from exclusion we move on up to local repellents, and then immunocontractives may play a role in this. Right now, contraceptives have to be voluntarily consumed by the animal, so we're actually thinking about having a way a means to inject those contraceptives within traps, so spring-loaded traps to inject the contraceptives to help the contraceptives play a role, and then from that we just keep moving up the pyramid, and if you trapping can work quite humanely. It's certainly better than days and days of bleeding out and from those bruising and just what that's like.
Agreed. So what role does technology play or will play or does or will ever, whatever?
So this is where creative minds need to get together. This is where academics need to be shaking hands with the industry and saying, what can we do for you? And this is what you could do for us. So we would like to design an app for industry with industry support and help. And basically in the app, they would be logging information and they would get credit for this. They could even receive funds for this, but they would be logging everyday information that they might consider anecdotal. But see, they have a wealth of information from being in at the grassroots level in the field. They have a wealth of information that's separated from the theory that we get in postgraduate school, for instance. We have all of the theory that is somewhat segregated from some of that experience that pest control managers get over 20 and 30 years. Put it together, develop an app, and let's find out things such as, okay, where are the rodent infestations taking place? What species of animal? Is it a Norway? Is it a roofie? Is it a house mouse? And then from there, what do the colony sizes look like? What are the rodent signs? What are the types of dwellings? Are these in restaurants? I mean, this is important information to know whether our restaurants, whether it's our typically, this has always been in private businesses and we don't find out about it. Let's get that information. We can have confidentiality. We won't breach that confidentiality, but let's get that information and make it available for researchers and health control, for public health professionals. They need this information. So the sky's the limit on what we can do together.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. But how can these like digital pest monitors, early warning systems help you in your research, like gathering more data?
Yeah, right. Gathering more data is part of it, but also for me, it's being more efficient with my time. So my site in Brooklyn was 3 hours round trip from my apartment, and you're talking. We set out traps at 8 p.m. the night before, and then we've got to be back out there at 8 or 9 a.m. in the morning, and there's a 3-hour round trip. And some days we didn't even catch any rats. Yeah. So pest monitors can just say, hey, they can take a couple of shots during the day and say, well, there's no activity at midnight, no activity at 6 a.m., no activity at noon, and we can just leave them there for the next day. So it's about productivity.
Yeah. No, absolutely agreed. Yeah, I mean, in the end, what to quote Bobby again, he said it's a no-brainer, obviously, because of these reasons. I mean, if we look at commercially pest control, getting an information about an intruder in the very second, you would do the same for your home if you would be looking at intruders or burglars or something like that. So, yeah, interesting. No, but I really call out for people that are watching to get in touch with Mike. It's always interesting to see what kind of research you do and how we can, as pest professionals, support you. Because in my eyes, looking from my point of view, obviously we are a product company and we develop products, but how do we develop it? Not by lab tests. We built prototypes, we gave them to professionals, had the professionals test them for us. And if they liked it, if it's feasible in the practice, of 10 products, probably like 8 flop, but 2 stick around. And honestly, we didn't do any, or we did like a couple of lab tests, but we don't really believe in lab tests. And a lot of the older or more corporate organizational companies ask us for lab tests and results. And we always decline and say, look, we're selling the product since, 10 years to professionals.
Right.
They love it. And it seems to be like good and applicable. We didn't ever yet perform a lab test, but you could do one. Like for some products. So what are your thoughts on that? Should we evolve that the right way, the wrong way to do it?
Yeah, so in terms of whether you develop a product and whether it should be tested by others, that's really tricky. So years ago in Australia, I had an experience where we knew how to get a really great response from kangaroos to urine from dingoes. And dingoes in Australia are more closely related to wolves than to the domestic dogs. And these, there was definitely a really interesting response. It was almost like a head jerk response, and they would retreat. And you could manipulate their behavior in such a way that if you targeted the area that you placed the scents in, and it was in an open area where there wasn't a lot of cover, for instance, we thought the kangaroos had a longer flight initiation distance. That is, the distance they would detect the scent from and the distance they would flee to. So that's kind of the way you have to think about repellents. So to bring that back to your question, I knew other people who said, well, you've shown that you think dingo urine is going to be a great kangaroo repellent, or it can be part of the picture. Right. Other people were looking at that and they didn't really know how to maximize the effect of it, the context to design it within, the flight initiation distance, for instance, and or the type of whether the area was sheltered or non-sheltered. And they were just chucking it out at random. And they were going, nope, didn't work in our area. And when independent labs assess any product, there's often a disconnect that's being made. And many times it almost seems like they're out to disprove it, as opposed to keeping an open mind to, well, how can we make it work? And that's the problem we have.
Yeah.
So I think you could step outside and say, hey, we want you to test our products, but we want to show you the context that they work within, because we don't want you going in with a mindset that you're going to show how it's not the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
So I was on both sides of that. I've been asked to assess, but I've also been a creator. And we patented the product, and there were people who were literally buying samples of urine in gels, and we were trying to tell people how to use it. And they just wanted to, they wanted a silver bullet solution.
Exactly.
And it just doesn't. It's not how repellents work. It's
if you're dealing with animals,
targeted.
Exactly. If you're dealing with animals, there is no silver bullet whatsoever. I mean, there are definitely solutions that work in like 80-90% of the cases, but that's it. I mean, it's the same with any sort of poison, insecticide, pesticide, rodents. So,
Right. We've quoted Bobby 3 times. Let's just go for another one. My money is on the rats. That's what he always says. My money is on the pests. So, and particularly rats, they're the perfect pest species. Yeah. They're adapted to overcome almost anything we can throw at them, except hygiene.
Yeah.
There's
also a study that I think Raja Mahendra, in one of my earlier interviews, I think end of 2018, from Nebraska University, where they did a research program on, I think, German cockroaches, and they investigated in a large research program what was the main cause for the infestations to exist, and over 90% or close to 90%, something like that, around about 90% of it, the reason was hygiene. So if people would have like a good hygiene program in place, then they wouldn't have an infestation. So it's crazy how closely knit, and how basically rats and hygiene, or the lack of, are just so connected and so correlating.
And that's the thing. People are slobs. It's sort of in our nature. It's in rats' nature to be the perfect commensal pest. It's in our nature to be slobs. And the question is, and this is a scary sort of question, is it going to be an incentive base? Do we offer incentives for people to clean up their properties? Because if they do not, they're going to infect their neighbors and raise the risk for their neighbors' properties. Or are there fines imposed on people who do not clean up and patch holes, and so I don't know the answer there, but we put the question out. I would rather be incentive based than punitive. I would rather say to government, okay, so we pay $19 billion. That the economy cost in the U.S. is $19 billion per year. That's an old estimate for what rats cost the economy. $19 billion per year, and that's through everything from fires of unknown origin to pathogen spread. A lot of things that are very difficult to quantify. Disabled motor vehicles, rats gnaw the wiring harnesses. So if we can lose this much money in the economy, surely we can spend a little bit to provide incentives for people to clean up their neighborhoods. And whether it's full-time sentries, I've been kind of banging the drum to have neighborhood sentinels who go out and keep their areas clean. And
it's funny, right? I mean, we have if you say it's 90 billion in US alone, it's probably like 200, 300, 400, 500 in all over the world, and our industry is only 20 billion large, crazily enough. So it's like 5 to 10%, I would guess. So that's crazy.
And,
that's really interesting.
And our nature, and this is why we're in a pandemic right now as well, because our nature is to be reactive rather than proactive. Wait till the problem comes, and then let's try to deal with it. And you see what is happening, how it's changed the world. But we would rather pay those costs than to go ahead and put things, in place for us. So,
agreed.
It's a lonely war to fight, put it that way. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Mike, thanks so much for your time. Really enjoyed
All
it.
right.
I think
Thank you.
learned a lot. I think, second rodentologist in the TPM video series. So thank you very much for your time and really enjoyed talking about it.
Okay. Let's do it again. All right.
Let's.
Cheers.
Absolutely.
Yep. Thanks.
Stay safe.